keep yourself in your lane. It is so easy to get excited and talk about there's all kinds of things I could talk about. I mean, I'm almost 52. I've seen some things, right? People don't care about all the things I've seen. They care about what my podcast is about. So stay in your lane of keep it super niched.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster. It's your host, Adam Adams. I'm joined here with Kevin Jens, and he's got a couple things that are unique and you might want to do. The first is he has a subscription for his podcast where they actually charge people to even be subscribed. So if your reality is built around, hey, I've got to do a podcast, it has to be free, it's going to be everywhere, there is another way. And Kevin actually had another thing that he wanted to share with you as well that he's been able to accomplish through the podcast. So we'll talk about that as well. Starting with this paid thing, because there's an interesting story behind it. So Kevin, would you share right before you had a 3-month, we'll call it a hiatus, when you had a 3-month hiatus, what was going on with your podcast content that the listener can probably resonate with?
So for 10 years, we did a weekly podcast, and we started out with 3 episodes in 2014, and then we did one every week, rain or shine, on the niche of government contracting. And we provided, the concept behind it was provide content they can do something with. And so our niche was, we wanted to share content that, because for some context, I'm a former contracting officer. And for those of you who don't work in government, that's somebody who signs government contracts. So I spent half of my career doing this. So we understand what it's like to buy stuff and spend our tax dollars, all the rules behind that. Now we're on the contractor side, and the idea is to help people understand both sides. That was the puzzle I was trying to solve. That's what my company does, was we help people understand both sides. In fact, we're named after the Skyway Bridge down here in Tampa Bay because we want to be a bridge between both sides. So that was the idea behind the podcast. It was working. We had 10,000 downloads, then 100,000 downloads, then 1 million downloads, then 1.5 million downloads, all the time over 10 years, every week. We put out a podcast episode, hit like, I think almost 350 or so before I realized we weren't getting a lot of customers from this. We got a few, I could correlate. People would tell me, hey, your podcast is great. I'd like to get your help, et cetera. But it wasn't driving a whole lot of customers. And because we're so niche, this isn't something that everybody cares about. The challenge of getting sponsors was pretty difficult. Like we get a few here and there, but it wasn't enough to really monetize the podcast. And so I took a little bit of a break at about episode 380 and thought, okay, well, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. What do we change? And so I started talking to our subscribers, and it turns out that a lot of them, like dozens of them, were using our content, and it was so rich and so deep that it was solving their problem. And I realized, I didn't realize the best thing that we have, we're giving away for free. It's a terrible business model. But if you don't know that, you're like, well, it's supposed to be a lead generator. It's supposed to get us to the deeper stuff. But because we have such good content, and that sounded arrogant to say, but because it's so valuable to our listeners, I realized, you know what, I need to change something. So I thought about, let's try charging for it. And sure enough, when I told our subscribers, which there were probably, a couple thousand of them, they were a hardcore listen every week. And before we even officially moved over, 3 of them signed up. That was my validation, is like, if we get 10 people to sign up for this, then this is a better way to go. Well, fast forward, I think that was episode 400 when we started charging for them, and we're now at 510, and we do one every week. So it's been a couple of years, and now we get a new paid subscriber probably every couple of days. And it was a hard decision because the podcast, I always thought it was free. And the idea was it was supposed to leads to us, but that's not what was happening. And so we had to, again, we had to pivot, but it was also, here's the other side. If you look, I laugh at this now. If you look up on our iTunes or Apple podcast, we had a 5-star reviews for 10 years until we started charging for it. We have multiple 1-star reviews that say, this was a great podcast, and still until they started charging for it, which tells me they just don't want to pay for it. It didn't tell me it's a bad podcast, but you got to be ready for that. That was a big change that I knew it was kind of worth the risk. But from a business perspective, I realized, well, if we lose half of our listeners because we start charging for it, they're still paying us the same amount of money, 0. So this is at least worth trying. And that 3 months when I took a hiatus, that was a hard decision of like, do we keep doing this and charge for it? Or do we hope that suddenly after 10 years, the 11th year is when they're going to start, kind of calling us? And so it was helpful.
I'm wondering how you started charging, like, and how much, and if it's changed along the way.
So we started with $20 a month, and then we increased it after a month because I realized that when you consider the value that folks are getting out of this, they're half-hour podcast episodes. They're the equivalent of a course, right? And then we ended up pushing the price up to $49 a month, and then we do promo codes here and there. And so the sticker price on our website is $49 a month, and it sells for that. But then we do promo codes to be able to tell where the marketing is coming from. Or I'm doing a special right now because, again, if you're watching the news, government contracting is in a weird space. Government is in a transition period, right? There's a lot going on. So we're actually offering a discount to folks to help during this weird time. But to answer your question, we started at 20, realized that's, and I told people, this is what I don't know what to charge for this. I've never done this before. So I started at 20 and said, well, let's see where it goes. And then we ended up it's currently at 49.
Okay. And if we've got a listener who's thinking, maybe I'm giving away too much free content, maybe it's so good that I'm losing clients and they want to do what you've done, how would you suggest them pick their first price?
Guess. That's a terrible answer. But yeah, I mean, so I thought about it. And again, pricing is one of the big challenges of business, right? And think in terms of this is my formal answer. Don't think about what it costs you. Think about what it's worth to them. So for some context, that $20 a month, that's $240 a year. If this helps them keep their job and they have a 6-figure job, it's worth $250 a year, right? If it helps them win one contract and the contract is worth $100,000, $1 million, a couple million, it's worth $250 a year. And because of that, that's where I moved from the 20 and I moved up to the 49 because I wanted the ability to give people a discount. I wanted there to be enough margin in this that I could do things like take the time we talk to our subscribers. And that's another part of this. We had 1.6 million downloads. I had no clue who they were. I had no relationship with them whatsoever, unless they happened to be in our LinkedIn group, which had like 2,000 people in it. Now I know who they all are. Like they'll email me and say, hey, can you make a podcast about data rights? And I make it. And now I mean, you hear my excitement because I'm serving them. Before I was throwing stuff into the wind, hoping somebody would catch it. Now I'm talking to, when I talk to Lisa, and Lisa says, can you make this podcast episode about the Veterans First program, which is a thing that Veterans Affairs uses. And we make it and she tells us this is great. So the feedback part of that tells me that it's worth X to them. But as far as picking the price, think in terms of what's the value to them.
And what about just like sticking rate? Does somebody jump in and pay you $49, listen to as many as they can, and then leave right away? Or do they stay with you for 2 years? What does that look like?
So it's both. We've had a couple people that'll come in and you'll see that we use Transistor.fm as our platform to pay to charge for the podcast. And you can see that people will come in, they'll listen to every episode in like a week and then they'll leave. But I go back to my original point. They were paying me $0 before and doing the same thing. So there's that, right? But on top of that, to the formal answer is that our churn, I think it's about 6%, which is reasonable. And frankly, I'm okay with them coming in, like for example, on the government side, they may need to get some special training to study to get their contracting officer warrant. There's a whole process to be able to do that. I mean, it's a big deal. You're spending tax dollars, right? So it's called a warrant board. So they may come in and buy this for 3-4 months, get their warrant board, and then they'll cancel it. But again, my mission is to help people. So I'm okay with that. Whereas before I didn't know that I was helping. And I love they tell me that. It's like, I only stayed because we'll follow up and they say, yeah, I stayed for 3 months because I needed to get this done. Like, okay, I helped you. Made my day.
And now I want to transition soon to micro niching.
Okay.
About 10-ish years ago from the time we're recording this, you had a TED Talk about niching small or micro niching. And I think that that's a topic that has some controversy, some question. And so it'd be good to jump into that. Prior to a transition though, when we're talking about us trying to monetize our podcast, there are so many different ways. Today, we've learned a way from you where you actually put a subscription. And when it goes on Apple and Spotify, they are clips or 5-minute portions of the thing. And then I assume that it says, hey, to get the full content, go to this place and subscribe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us more about just the operations, how it looks, how it works, in case that's something that we want to take away from this and get started.
So we actually have to post it in 2 different places. That's
Okay.
it's the downside, I guess. We're posting the full episode with no ads on transistor.fm, which that's what shows up on our website. And that's where we're tracking when people are listening. And they can submit that for training because we can see they've actually listened. Then there's the one that goes on Apple Podcasts. And that is a shortened version. It's a 30-second ad of me saying, hey, thanks for checking out our podcast. This is what it's for. This is here's who it's for, etc. And then there's like the first 5 minutes of the episode. And I tell them, we're going to give you a sample so you can see this is for you. If it's for you, then I'll tell you how to get on board at the end. And then at the end, I have probably a 35 or 45-second recording of me walking them through. Here's what you use it for. Here's who it's for. Here's how you can get this episode. And then we have a promo code. And so they get a 10% discount by going through there, which then tells us, oh, that's where they found it. So the promo code is CL10. It's for Cesar Lopez, is the guy that manages this whole thing for us. So it's that way we can tell. It's a Cesar lead. It's a Cesar sale because they signed up directly through there. So if we had left the price at $20, for example, and I give them a 25% discount, okay, now we're almost giving the thing away for free again. So that's one of the reasons I raised the price. So we can do things like give people discounts and then use discount code to track where. So operationally, you can see, oh, that's where they're coming from. They're finding us on there. They're listening to the sample and going, you know what, I'll give it a try. And then I can see how they came in. So it's a little bit more work because it's 2 separate episodes. We have a whole process that actually, today's Wednesday, so it starts today. Every episode comes out on Friday. So I start the process of I write the text, and then we have somebody does the graphic, and we have somebody who Cesar takes the shortens the episode down to 5 minutes, and then Jeff puts it on the Apple Podcast feed, and then Charlie, a different person, puts it on our website on the transistor.fm. So there's a whole process there, but that's the ability to be able to put it in 2 different places and use it as a marketing tool. Because if you go into Apple Podcasts and type government contracting, we'll still come up and you'll get a sample and you'll be able to say, okay, this is a podcast I might be willing to try. There's plenty of free ones that you can also use too, but you can try ours out. And if you like it, then you move over to the paid version. It's a little bit more work to do it this way, but then again, we have control of the revenue piece of it.
Got a couple questions. Would you ever limit how many episodes somebody could listen to or watch on your website with the paid version at $49 so they're more likely to stay and keep paying longer? Like, for example, you get 10 episodes, up to 10 episodes a month. We publish 4.333, but you can listen to 10 a month. Does that sound like something you would do or no?
I hadn't thought of it at this point because we're not churning. I mean, we're 6%. 6% is not a whole lot of people leaving, so it's not a problem yet. I like the fact that they can go back and listen to the one on Colors of Money, episode 9. That was, that's like 11 years old. I love the fact that they'll go back to those and use them and then tell us, oh, by the way, this one needs to be updated. So I kind of like the fact they can listen to all 500. Plus, most people, 500 episodes is 250 hours. If they can grind through that in a whole month, God on you. Good luck.
Now, you mentioned earlier that when you were putting out this content in the beginning, you did it because you wanted to bring in clients. And you also mentioned that you didn't initially get a lot of clients because you gave them everything. They had all the actionable takeaways they needed. Now that they're paying $49 a month, some of them getting a discount, now that they're paying $50 a month, are you getting clients out of this? Because someone might say that, hey, when someone starts to pay, they start to add more credibility to what they're paying for than if they were getting it for free. So they're more likely to look up to you, etc. Which might mean, or I'm thinking it could mean, that you're getting more clients now. But I'm curious if that's true or how does that look for you?
Yeah. So all of it, we have 4 different client levels now. We have the podcasters, which are $50. We have what we call a professional client who gets access to our whole platform, including the podcast, and that's $200. And then we have a premium client who gets access to all that. Plus, they get 2 hours of consulting a month that they either use or lose, but then they have more hours we build them at the end of the month for. And then we have a partner client who's the top end. That's the one that they get all of this, right? So to answer your question, a lot of folks will start with that podcast level and then say, hey, I need you to help me with the proposal. I need you to provide this training. I need this podcast episode that you did on the color teams in government proposals. I need training on that. Then they move up to the other levels. That's the idea, is that the stickiness of it is that our overall retention rate's like 98%. They'll stay somewhere in that bucket. The one that churns the most, ironically, is the podcast level. All the rest of them don't churn hardly at all because they know they can always go down to the podcast level. Like we have clients that they'll use the premium, the one that has consulting in, and then they'll fix the problem they were dealing with, and then they'll move down to the podcast, and then they stay. And then they know that I'm happy with them moving back and forth because at the end of the day, I want to help them and I want to keep them as a client, and giving them those options works.
Before we transition to micro niching, which is something that you spoke TEDx talk, what else about this might be important for a listener who's considering having a subscription model?
So the biggest thing is make sure this is going to sound arrogant, so just bear with me. Make sure your content is good enough. It's got to be really, really good. Like we spend hours researching and practicing, and we go through a basic concept of communication between government and industry. We have references. We have all kinds of things they can look up. We have examples. We have stories. I'll do research from inside and outside government. I'll make metaphors to help them understand. I mean, it's a lot of work, and people notice that. That's why they're willing to pay for it. If you're just going to talk and give your ideas and expect them to pay for it, that might not be as valuable. But if you have something that you know it will make them better at their job, and that's how they feed their kids, you're giving them real value. And so that's the part that's probably the biggest part. And so the follow-up to that is once we started charging for it, I mean, we loved making great content because we were trying to help people. Once we started charging for it, we still love doing it, but now we have to do it. Because the expectation is, okay, for example, in the early days, we would, over Christmas, we might do like an encore episode. We'd pull one from, we did like a year ago and we just would repost it. We don't do that anymore. We're not giving you a repeat because you're paying for new content every single week, right? So and I would even argue the content's probably even better now because people have validated, I'm willing to pay for this, Kevin. It better be good, which is a reasonable expectation. So those are the two things. One, you have to have great content and you got to have a process and you need to know what are they willing to pay for? Like the concept of why are they paying for it? You're going to talk to them a lot more. You're going to have your customer service side. Like, be okay with that. Because when they email me, when they were a listener, I'm giving them free content and they say, hey, can you make this podcast episode for me? I'm not really excited about doing that. Whereas they're a customer. They're not just a listener anymore. They're an actual customer. So the expectation when they ask for content, you're not only going to make it, you're going to make it pretty quickly and you're going to make it as great as the rest of the content. That's what you're signing up for. But I would say it's worth it.
I also like that you are doing a few different levels of membership. So I also have a podcast agency and we've got a couple different tiers. So we'll edit your podcast and we'll market your podcast and we'll do all these things for such and such a price. Or there's a bigger level that has more advertising, a website built from scratch, etc., and it costs more. And it's funny because I pretty much want to include everything for everybody, but I realized, hey, not everybody needs this piece and some people don't want to pay a whole bunch. So let me find a way to take that off and get a lower package that just doesn't include this one thing. And then, hey, a lot of people might want this, I said a lot of people. Some people, I should say, might want this extra special thing, but it's going to cost a ton of extra money, extra time, extra attention. And I've got a fitness company as well. So we just added a tier. So we had only one tier to work with the fitness company where they read the blood work and then we give you a plan for nutrition, supplements, and your exercise program. And that was it. And then I started working with this guy. He's 68 years old, and he needed a lot of extra attention, which is great. Love it. But it made me think, hey, somebody else is going to want all this extra attention. And it's not that I'm not happy to do it. Like, I'm thrilled to support somebody and get them to their next level. It is just that I realize that it is so much extra time and attention that I wouldn't have normally given to anyone. So we added something that was about 4 times the price. Let's just call it 10,000 and 40,000.
Okay.
10,000, we'll do all this for you. 40,000, we'll do all this for you, but we'll fly out to your house. We'll stay at a hotel. We will go with you to get the blood work. We'll go with you to get the DEXA scan. We will go with you to the gym to make sure your form's good. We'll do all of these things, and we'll make sure that you're on the apps. You know how to use the apps. You know how to plug in your calories, and then we'll fly home after 5 days. And it's like there is some serious cost to that. We looked at it, was like 8 more thousand just for that one trip, just for the trip. So then we try to figure out, okay, how are we going to charge for this? And I did something that you said, Kevin. I didn't necessarily charge for the time that it would take. I charged, like you said, for the value that they're getting.
Right.
So it wasn't exactly 10 and 40,000, but it was close enough that we just said, if somebody wants that extra stuff, they'll do that. And so we put on a totally new tier. Of course, we have to limit it because you can't have 1 million people that you're flying out to. You just wouldn't have the ability to do that. But it does definitely go hand in hand with what you're saying. So you're talking also about these 4 levels. Your lowest level is the $50 a month with a discount sometimes. And then you have another level that has that plus more access to things. And then you have another level that's all of those plus some consulting. And then you have the top level. Would you remind me what your top level is?
It's the partner level.
What does that mean?
So basically, we're partnering with you. So that feels like we are part of your company. I mean,
Okay.
this is unlimited consulting. This is sort of using government contracting lingo. So pre-award, like helping you win the work, post-award, helping you manage the work, and all the stuff in between. It could be helping you with pricing. It's helping you with mapping a proposal. It's doing what they call a red team review of your proposal before it goes in. It's mapping all the weird stuff that's like, here's one right now, navigating the elements of your termination for convenience that you may have gotten from the government because the government's shrinking right now. Well, there's a whole process to that. And so because it's an unlimited amount of consulting, it's a fixed cost for them as a company. A lot of companies, they love that. And some months we don't do that much, but we're an insurance policy. Other months we do a lot, and they do really well because they've got a fixed price. But for them, it's great because it's a fixed price line item. It's like having basically for half the cost of an employee, they have 11 former contracting officers with all of our different experience, having done all these things from both sides now. That's a huge value to them. But to your point, it's a value to them. If we used to charge like lawyers, where it's like, oh, well, 6 hours here, we increment of 15 minutes. They're like, solve my problem. That's what I want. It's like insurance companies don't charge you by the hour; they charge you by the problem. It's like, what are you covering, right?
Yeah.
That's what the partner level is all about.
I think that there's a lot of great takeaways there. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about micro niching and why it's important and how to do it. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, GrowYourShow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show. We're back with Kevin Jans. And prior to the break, we talked a lot about having a podcast that gets paid in a different way. Now we're going to talk about this TEDx talk that he had in Tampa, like about 10 years ago, about micro niching, which is exactly what he's done on his podcast. And it's worked for him, which means it might work for you. Kevin, what do we need to know about micro niching? What, in your 13-minute TEDx talk, what were the big points that will take us half the time?
So I would say I have to go back to memory here, but the biggest point for me from the TED talk was understanding what your micro niche is. Like, who are you actually helping?
How do you do that?
So the three questions to ask is, who's buying from you? What are they buying? And then why are they buying? That's the hardest one to answer. And once you figure out why are they buying, then you can start to filter down, okay, this group of people are going to buy from me. They're going to be thrilled to find, I joke about this in the TED talk. If you look up the contractingofficerpodcast.com and you're not in government contracting, that is not interesting to you at all. However, if you are in government contracting and you realize, wait a minute, there's a podcast hosted by two former contracting officers that have over 500 episodes that dig into all the little nuances of things from service contracts, to the Service Contract Act, to data rights, to all the weird things that have in the thousands of regulations. I could sign up for that. That's who you're looking for. Why they're buying? Because you solve the problem they have. And so that's a big part of niching. And this I've learned since the TED Talk is how to phrase this is once you understand what problem you solve for people, that makes niching that much more effective because then you don't talk to people who you can't solve the problem. So problem for us, our mission is to help both sides understand government contracting. So we all do GovCon well. If you go to our website, it says do GovCon well. That's the idea. So we want to help both sides understand how government contracting works. That's our mission. So if you're not in government contracting, you don't care. If you're on one side or the other and you don't care how the other side is thinking, you don't care about us. You're not. But the ones who come to us and they're like, okay, I have a contract. The government is not paying me on time. Why? That's my target. Because I understand why the problem they have. They want to understand what is the other side thinking. Likewise, we have government customers, and the government customers are saying the contractors aren't submitting proposals for this work. Why? The contractors are expecting to get paid for this work that seems like it should be included. Why? That we're solving that problem for them. So the idea of what problem do you solve is number one. Number two is understand, like from a podcast perspective, keep yourself in your lane. It is so easy to get excited and talk about there's all kinds of things I could talk about. I mean, I'm 50, almost 52. I've seen some things, right? People don't care about all the things I've seen. They care about what my podcast is about. So stay in your lane of keep it super niched to things like the colors of money is a concept in government contracting because there's ways funds are used, right? A half an hour on that little topic, that gives somebody in a half an hour, they will know 80% of what they need to know about that for the rest of their lives. That's micro niching. But you have to be able to tie it to what the problem that they actually have and then stay in your lane. I can keep going.
Pretend that I'm a therapist and I want to have a podcast. Let me pretend that as this therapist that I am, I feel like I can help just about anybody with just about anything because I understand psychology and sociology. I've studied it. I've got my degrees. And I've worked with enough people and been able to support them. So I don't want a niche. Coach me.
My first question is, do you like helping all those people?
I would say that there is a part of, in this theoretic thing, there's a part of me that likes helping everybody because I feel like I've got something to offer. And so, yes, in a way, of course, there are favorite clients and less favorite clients. There's harder to work with clients and easier to work with clients. There's issues that they're dealing with that we can accomplish with simple steps. And there's others that take a long time and might not work. All in all, if I help somebody, it feels good inside, but there's easier clients and harder clients.
Okay, so that's the first place is what do you like doing, right? Then the second part is where can you have the most impact? And so case in point, for our podcast, like in my TED Talk, we could help anybody who wants to do government contracting. Lots of small businesses love the idea of government contracting, right? But that's not who we're targeting. We're targeting the ones who want to understand the other side. So what that turns into, most of the people we can help the most are ones who already have a contract because they understand what a contracting officer is. So they understand why that matters. They understand I need to know what the contracting officer is thinking so I can do my job better. So let's go back to the therapist part. Thinking in terms of who can you help the most? Who are you going to have the most leverage? Is it men? Is it women? Is it people in their 40s? Is it people who want to move from X to Y? Like, who are you helping the most? That's how you decide. And if, frankly, if your answer is, honestly answer is, I want to help everybody be able to drink more water. Okay, everybody needs that. That is, you're not going to niche that down. But if you answer that, because not everybody needs this, but if your passion and frankly, your skill is niched to, I connect the most with my customers who are women between 25 and 45. Even if you don't know why that is, if that's a fact you can see, if you see most of your customers, what's the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule?
Yeah.
If 80% of your customers are not in that group, but the 20% who are, those are the ones who are seeing you the most, you're having the most impact with them. They're coming to you, they're referring the most people to you, you relate to them the most, pick a reason. But you have to pay attention to that. And then once you see that, then you can start to use the Pareto principle and say, okay, the 20% that I'm having the most impact with, and then let the other 80% go. And that's when the niching really starts to kick in.
Sweet. That was absolutely helpful. And I was thinking about this therapist. Maybe they liked working with parents because they would feel more like that was a generational thing. Is that a big enough niche, or does it have to be the dad or the mom, or do they have to be a certain age?
Well, and that's a judgment call. For me, the micro niche, I would go as low as you can go to the point where it's almost uncomfortable. So, for example, it's uncomfortable for me to say, we are helping people who want to understand what the other side is thinking. Because that's really probably only, 20% of the people who are in government contracting or think most of I just want to sell something. Well, if you just want to sell something, there are businesses that can help you. But if you really want to understand how to do government contracting well, and by the way, there's two reasons I'm so gung-ho for this. One is I believe as a nation, if we do government acquisition, because we've decided, since before the Civil War, we're going to have contractors do stuff. Like, this isn't a new thing. Like, we as a society have decided it's better to hire professional podcasters than hire government employees to do podcasting. Like, that's like most of the media that's coming out of DC done by contractors. So I believe we do that well, we're better off as a nation, right? That's the first part. The second part is, as a business providing that service, this is an evergreen environment. If you provide a service well to the government and you can provide it to this agency, there's 100 agencies you can help. It's a huge opportunity. But I'm looking for those people who I want to solve this problem. The ones who are just like, yeah, I'm just looking to make money. There's lots of ways to make money. There's plenty of podcasts for you. Knock yourself out. But the ones who are like, I want to understand how to do this well. It's a difficult thing for me to say from the perspective of, well, I'm leaving the other 90% off the table who just want to make money. But guess what? There's a huge piranha pile of blood red water to fight for that business. Lots of people are offering that service. Whereas what we have is, this is a niche that I think only us and like a couple other podcasters have.
Okay. And so going back to us figuring out how to niche, you had 3 questions. You said, who's currently buying from me?
Right.
What is it that they're buying?
Right.
And what's the reason behind?
Yeah, why they're buying. Right.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else when it comes to niching down that a listener might need to hear?
Let's see. Again, it's going to be uncomfortable because you have to say no. You have to say no to things. You have to know what to say no to. The nice thing about that, though, is it'll be uncomfortable for a while when you say no to things, but what you'll discover is it makes it easier to say no. Because being able to feel like, I don't know if I can help these folks, feeling's not really a good way to go. Whereas if you say, this is my niche, like this is the problem that we solve, you don't have that problem. And that's how you build referral networks. And you can send them to people who actually can help them. Like if you're coming to us and you want a connection to some government employee, there's a company that does that exclusively. I will send you to them. That's not what we do. We help you how to manage the process to actually win the contracts better. So knowing what you're going to spend your time on is a big part of niching down. And then once you've done it, it's easier to tell who can I help and who can I not help. And by the way, your advertising is going to get less expensive because you're niched to, I'm only for our therapist. Let's say they were doing Facebook ads. They know who they're looking for. They're not just anybody who wants therapy. They may want women between 25 and 40 who have at least one kid. Like, you just cut your ad budget by like 80% because now you're not trying to compete with, Coca-Cola and advertise to everybody.
Good stuff. Well, to the listener, all of Kevin's information is down in the show notes already. So the link to his TEDx talk called Why the Micro Niche is Mighty by Kevin Jans is already down in the show notes. His website is down in the show notes. A link to his podcast is down in the show notes. And any social media that he wanted you to have is already down in the show notes. So go check that out, connect with him there, check out the podcast. And the next episode's got a lot of great content for you. So if you've got a few minutes, don't go anywhere. I'll see you on the next episode. By the way, one way to ensure that you don't miss out on great content that we're producing on a regular basis is to make sure you're subscribed to the show. You need to be subscribed or following the Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to it in order not to miss all of that. And before I let you go, I need to mention, because a lot of people are asking, do you help? Can you help me with this? And the answer is yes. My company actually does it. It's called Grow Your Show. And you can find that at growyourshow.com. Our clients, they call us the easy button for podcaster because they simply have to record their episode. And they know that every single thing else is done for them. We sweat the hard stuff so you can be the star of your show. And if you would like help to make sure that we're editing and publishing and promoting and doing your social media, it's all in one place. And I think it's pretty affordable. You'll have to take a look for yourself. Just go to growyourshow.com and check us out. And by the way, I'll see you on the next episode.